Hope you're doing good. Micah back with another video. Back here to talk about the best battery tips and tricks for your Android device, specifically a Samsung Galaxy device, and even more particularly the Samsung Galaxy S25 series. Now, as you guys have been experiencing on this channel with me, we've been on an interesting battery life journey with this device, and that is because of one main culprit, and that was YouTube. And that's why these tips and tricks that I'm about to show you guys, evaluate yourself based on each app's usage. And what I mean by that is take a social media app you may use and use it to the full. Like just take 1 hour or so, have it running. Most likely it's going to be YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, or Twitter/X. Whatever apps you use like that, use them, especially if you're doing a lot of video heavy tasks with them, such as just watching videos. Just feel your phone. If it's getting hot, I think there's a specific reason why. It's not just because you're using more of the phone's power because of the screen being, emitting more power, more pixels. Resolution also plays a role, but specifically the phone is at odds with itself, wanting to optimize that app while you're using it to its fullest capabilities. And so that's what I realized with YouTube is that the Android system or Samsung, Android itself wants to optimize every app to its best situation. However, it's very hard for it to do that when YouTube, for example, is a battery hog machine. This will hog battery life or hog resources. And it's really not so much as battery life as it is the phone trying to optimize an app that is doing a lot. And so because they fight with each other, that's where the overheating kicks in, and that's where the battery life depletes like crazy out of nowhere. And thus you have this weird conundrum that I was in for like a good 2-3 weeks. So how do you end up solving for that? Well, take those basically about 4 core apps. You could probably throw Snapchat in there too for those who still use Snapchat. And you want to press and hold on the app, or you can find it in settings, and you hit the info button on that app. And you come into here, and you're going to come down here to battery. Okay, focus. We were doing really good. And you're going to come here to battery. And you're going to want to unrestrict, or in other words, give it unrestricted use, meaning that the software will not try to interrupt the use of that app. Now, you think at first glance that means it's going to drain more battery life, but actually not so much the case. It will actually not drain as much battery life, literally, and that is because the phone is allowing that app to freely be used. So on one hand, it might seep a little bit more battery life, but actually in the grand scheme of things, you'll save a whole lot more battery life and less heat on your phone. And I think YouTube was the biggest demonstration of this for me to showcase this ability. Now, one app I have not unrestricted yet is Instagram, in my opinion, because I'm still gauging whether or not Instagram is a big deal. And so far it isn't, but it probably wouldn't hurt for me to still run this with Instagram as well, right? I don't use Twitter enough to have to unrestrict it. For me, it was primarily YouTube, and I would probably even imagine for most out there, if it's not YouTube, it's probably TikTok or Instagram as a second secondary option, and Snapchat third. So take those apps. I may even argue Facebook, but I don't think Facebook really heats up like that. I know Facebook takes a lot of resources, but I don't think it really heats up like that. So what you want to do is unrestrict the battery optimization of that specific app. And you can do that with every app that you want to. And so if you want to actually find it without having to press and hold on the app, you come into settings, and then you come in here to apps. So once you find apps, you click on apps, and then you search for the app that you want to unrestrict. And so let's say for me, I want to find, I guess you can't scroll the way I wanted to. Maybe I want to come in and try to find Instagram next, right? Instagram, where you at? So maybe I want to try Instagram. So I click on Instagram, and then I come in here to battery, and then it's on optimize. If I unrestrict it, I should have potentially less problems with Instagram now than I did before. And you can even throw Threads in there if you guys use Threads, because Threads is another app. It's just, we got too many apps now. But that's one situation, one case where you can unrestrict battery optimization for your specific apps that you use on a regular basis. Not only does the phone learn the battery or usage patterns, but sometimes you cannot rely on that when it comes to higher intense based apps such as social media apps. And so that's another way for you to gauge and allow the phone to pay attention to everything else outside of those few core apps that you use. So that way you don't have to worry about your phone overheating, especially if you wear a case on a regular basis like me. We roll free, baby. But some of y'all wear cases, and so that heat buildup also will start to wear and tear on that battery a lot faster. So that is app info / unrestricted battery optimization. Now, what else can you do to save battery life? Well, you can also come in here. You can come to device care. You could probably also find it in the battery settings, but you can always optimize, because that also in ways helps by closing out apps that you're not using, background apps, so on and so forth. If you click on battery, you can, you also can gauge your background usage limits, meaning you can put apps to sleep. You can also make sure certain apps never sleep, and then you can even deep sleep apps, which effectively disables the app. So if there's apps that you just don't use that often, every once in a while you use it, go ahead and deep sleep it, and then just activate it when you need it for the 1 or 2 times. Like, let's say you got the IRS app on your phone, you only use it once or twice a year just to gauge when you're gonna receive that refund check, and then once you get your check, deep sleep it, and you ain't gotta worry about it. So that's a good example of an app that you can deep sleep, that you don't use but a couple times out the year, and it will not affect your overall use case. So that's where you can find more in terms of your background usage limits. That kind of ties in with battery optimization. Now, of course, you have your core power saving settings, right? And power savings has a lot of options here, right? You can limit CPU speed to 70%. You could turn off always on display. You can decrease brightness by 10% just off the rip. Set motion smoothness to standard. Turn on dark mode. You can set screen timeout to 30 seconds, right? And then you can even limit apps and home screen. That's kind of, wow. So again, power saving gives you some automated tools that you could check on or check off when power saving is turned on to further save battery life. Let's say if you're below 15% or below 10%, below 5%. Checking those boxes off will help your phone try to savor those last few percentages that you have, so that way you can make it to a charger. Now, let's say you didn't want to do all that. Well, if you come further down here in battery settings, you also have the ability to change the type of charging and why, and whether or not you want to use wireless power saving to charge other devices, such as wearables. The Galaxy Ring case should be able to charge on the back of the phone. Your Galaxy Watch should be able to charge on the back of the phone. Your Galaxy Buds should be able to charge on the back of the phone. So you have that option there. And then charging, you can change whether or not you want fast wireless charging, because when not properly charged, you can actually do damage to the battery with fast charging. And I think, to me, that's if you're not consistent with allowing the phone to charge up, if not to 80% or 80+%, you're just on and off the charger. That type of surge within the battery can do some degrading over time. So you have those options there as well. And the last thing I want to tackle in regards to battery, or in the battery section, I should say, unless it moved. You come up here to battery, you got battery protection. So battery protection is something that I use, but I use the basic version. And you see when your battery is charged 100%, charging while sleep or stop. Dang, I can't. Oh, charging will stop until the battery level drops down to, what's that say, 95%, and then charging will start again. So this is a way to trickle charge the battery to not do damage to the battery. For me, I like the basic. You could do maximum, which, this basically like the 80% rule, but my focus and me reading this behind my little prompter here isn't helping. So let me see if I can do that for myself. As you guys see, it says charging will stop at a level you set. So you can set that to be 80%, 85%, 90%. So that's what you can do for yourself, for your own personal reasons for your battery life. And then, of course, you also have adaptive protection, which will stop charging at 80% while you're asleep, and then we'll start charging to 100% just before you wake up. So that I definitely use, because throughout the night, for a good 8 to 10 hours, whatever it's on, however long it's on the charger, my battery is essentially protected in that way. So that's something that I also definitely like when it comes to the settings. And the last setting that I'm looking for, that for whatever reason I cannot find right now, and I don't know if it got moved. It's back in device care, and I was looking for your profile, your performance profile. If you want to save even more battery life, switch it to light, right? This protects battery life and cooling efficiency over processing speed. So if you're not, a super heavy user in that way, you're not doing a lot from that perspective, you don't need the full capability of your CPU, drop it to light. That will allow your phone to process less, thus saving more battery, and your phone will not be as hot as often because the processor is being limited to not have to overclock or to not have to clock any higher than it needs to get processes done. Now, display wise, if we jump in here to display, we saw it in power saving, but if this is something you want to do on a regular for yourself, I would definitely say do a motion smoothness. Change this to standard. It goes from 120 hertz that I'm usually using to 60 hertz. Most people who have not used 120 hertz, you know, if you haven't used it, stick to 60. 120 hertz will change the world for you. But if that's not a big deal for you, or the difference is not enough for you to want to sacrifice some of that battery life, switch it to standard. That way you can maintain better battery life in that way as well. This is a big game changer when it comes to battery life. Is 60 hertz versus 120 hertz, especially if you don't use or have not used 120 hertz on a regular basis. Sometimes what can happen with some of us is our eyes get trained to that 120 hertz, and we need at least 90 in order to experience that smoothness. But I will say Samsung and Apple do a very good job of optimizing their displays to make use of 60 hertz. The other option is use adaptive brightness. This sets the brightness according to the room, meaning you won't have a steady, consistent 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 and up percent on brightness. It scales based on the ambient lighting, so that way you get the best use out of your display without having to drain unnecessary battery life, and that is display. Now, the last thing that I actually want to show you guys isn't necessarily in settings. It's actually really two things, and it's within Good Guardians. Now, this is some extra credit, if you will. Jump into my Samsung folder, and I jump in here to Good Guardians. You can download this via the Galaxy Store. Battery tracker, even though I don't have it downloaded, this allows you to track your apps. So that way you can see what apps you need to, adjust when it comes to potentially the background usage or even the optimization aspect that we talked about earlier in the video. Using this will help you gain more control over your apps and over your battery life. I don't need to use it because I pretty much know my situation. Battery Guardian is a big deal. Battery Guardian gives you more tools to use when it comes to battery life, such as setting specific times for sleep so it knows to use adaptive protection, or use power saving while you're asleep. You could even do network power saving. I don't have anything going on here, but the selected apps will not use 5G data when mobile data usage is low. So that's another way for you to get more granular, more specific control over your app usage, which then affects your battery life. And then you have your adaptive power saving here, which it optimizes battery draining apps in to extend your battery life. Now, who knows? This potentially could have been at odds with YouTube itself, but because I turned off the battery optimization, this no longer affects anything, which I'm completely fine with. And if I click on this, and of course you can come in here and find more tips. Auto dim has been integrated with app screen timeout of display assistant, and standard refresh rate apps and screen curtain are supported by display assistant. So display assistant is another app within Good Lock that could give you a little bit more control over battery life and your display overall. And the big thing that I like to talk about here is Thermal Guardian. I have mine turned up, meaning I don't mind, and see, as you see, it never gets up here. But this allows you to change the threshold of your CPU temperature. I have mine plus 2% or 2 degrees Celsius. But if you want to, you could change it and bump it down here. See? So now the thermal threshold will be decreased 2 degrees Celsius from default. So default's in the middle. Any other direction is going to allow the CPU to stay cooler more, or allow it to be able to get a little bit more warm. And so I have mine a little bit warm because I want my phone to be ready at all times, and that's why I have mine increased the way I do. And then of course additional settings, if you wanted to save battery life, you have these options here: limiting CPU boosting when heating, decrease maximum brightness when heating, apply standard motion smoothers when heating, and turn off 5G if the data usage is low when screen is on. This all allows to decrease the amount of heat possible for your Galaxy device, so that way your device can stay cool and thus battery life will stay unaffected. If we jump in here to good lock, this will be the last thing, as long as my camera doesn't die on me, and that is display assistant. As soon as I find it here, if you click on it, it's in beta, but you have your app screen timeout that you can change, keep the screen on if you needed to, which essentially is close and related to screen curtain. You can change your brightness limit level, your adaptive brightness options. So if you click in here, you can actually change how fast the brightness will change. Right now it's at 1x, but if you need it to drop and dip real fast, depending on the situation, you can change that speed, which is actually pretty cool. And then you can reset your usage patterns, so that way it knows a little bit more about what situations you're in, so that way brightness can adjust accordingly. And then you have standard refresh rate apps. This is what was being read before. This allows you to change the refresh rate for certain apps. Maybe you don't want every app to run past 60 hertz. Maybe you want more apps to run 120 hertz, essentially. So you have that adjustment here with that tool. And then screen curtain, which is within your quick settings. To display notifications on screen curtain, you need to allow the notification access permanent or permission in settings. And so that is pretty much what I would do. I come in here to settings and I turn that on, so that way it has some control. And so now with screen curtain, it will still display notifications if I wanted to. You can add a quick setting button, which I thought I did. Now I did. And then you have double press side button if you wanted to do that to activate screen curtain. So if I swipe down, you should see screen curtain in here right there. So if I click on that, it will boom, just like that. And then all I have to do is double tap and I'm back out. So that's screen curtain for you. And then let's see, keep screen on. This allows you to keep the screen on for certain apps, or essentially add the quick button for it. And so this will allow the screen to stay on for 30 minutes. Screen on will be immediately turned off when screen is off, device reboot, or the battery is below 15%. So even then, it still has its own built-in parameters to make sure that you don't overdo it with your battery life. And that is the battery device tips and tricks for your Galaxy device. Some of these are available on other Android devices, but these are very Samsung specific features as well. Let me know down in the comment section below what you guys think about battery life. Do you guys enjoy using your device as much as I do? Do you care about battery life the same way? And do your own troubleshooting? The comment section is open for discussion below. But again, as always, if you guys haven't already, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, the notification bell. It's all free. That way you know some videos. So you and I can sit back, check, see what's cracking. And don't forget to hit that super things button down there by the like and dislike button. Cash App or PayPal, and check the channel out for all the videos available to you. That's way to keep the tech fresh and alive on this channel. It's Micah signing out, and until the next video, wait for it.